Welcome to this update on recent events regarding North Korea's missile tests and its resumption of trade with China. Following the resumption of trade with China, North Korea conducted its fourth missile test in 2 weeks, firing 2 suspected short-range ballistic missiles, SRBMs, from Sunan Airfield in Pyongyang. These missile tests come amidst heightened tensions in the region, with North Korea showing its determination to enhance its military capabilities. Despite recent efforts to resume trade with China and potentially re-engage in international diplomacy, North Korea's missile tests signal its continued defiance against perceived threats and sanctions. The timing of these tests, just a day after the resumption of trade with China, underscores North Korea's strategic priorities and its willingness to assert its sovereignty. As the situation unfolds, it remains imperative for the international community to closely monitor developments and work towards peaceful resolutions. After resuming trade with China, North Korea fires another 2 ballistic missiles. A day after a North Korean train crossed the border to get goods from China, the country conducted its 4th missile test in 2 weeks. North Korea fired 2 missiles eastward from Sunan Airfield in Pyongyang on Monday, according to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, JCS. The missiles, suspected to be short-range ballistic missiles, SRBMs, were launched at 8:50 a.m. and 8:54 a.m. The JCS said Korea Standard Time, KST, respectively, and flew about 380 kilometers at a maximum altitude of 42 kilometers. Today's missile test came 3 days after North Korea tested 2 railway-borne SRBMs on January 14th and marked the North's 4th missile test in less than 2 weeks. North Korea also launched what it called hypersonic missiles on January 5th and January 11th. South Korea's JCS said it is analyzing more details on the type and performance of the latest missiles with the U.S. military. Based on the information released by the JCS so far, the missiles could be North Korea's KN-23, KN-24, or KN-25 missiles. North Korea has not yet published any information on the performance of the missiles. Based on previous launches, state media will likely publish detailed information on the missile tests around 7 a.m. KST on Tuesday. South Korea's National Security Council held an emergency meeting hours after North Korea launched the 2 apparent SRBMs on Monday. In a statement after the meeting, the NSC called the North's missile tests very regrettable, a slightly stronger response compared with its expression of strong regret after previous tests. North Korea has conducted 4 missile tests so far this month. The 2 railway-borne SRBMs launched on Friday were perhaps the most eye-catching, bringing more attention from the U.S. and South Korea. That test was conducted in the afternoon, which was unusual as North Korea usually test-fires missiles in the early morning. KST, and came hours after Pyongyang released a statement condemning the U.S. decision to impose sanctions on 6 North Korean individuals who are involved in the country's weapons of mass destruction, WMD, and ballistic missile programs. North Korea had already conducted hypersonic missile tests on January 5th and 11th to prove its advanced missile technologies after Seoul downplayed the performance of its apparent hypersonic missile launched on January 5th as a general ballistic missile. Pyongyang is showing its military might by repeatedly violating the UN Security Council resolution that bans North Korea from testing and developing any type of ballistic missiles. By now, Kim Jong-un has effectively achieved his goal of normalizing his SRBM since resuming tests on May 4th, Lee Sung-yoon, a professor at the Fletcher School at Tufts University, told The Diplomat. While Pyongyang has been testing SRBMs, Lee raised the possibility that Pyongyang could move on to bigger provocations by resuming intermediate and long-range missile tests, possibly punctuated by a missile-borne nuclear test in the skies above the Pacific. North Korea has not conducted any intercontinental range ballistic missile, ICBM launches or nuclear tests since November 2017. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un had announced a self-imposed moratorium on such tests as part of nuclear negotiations with then U.S. President Donald Trump. However, Kim said in December 2019 that he no longer felt bound by his self-moratorium on nuclear and ICBM tests, meaning North Korea could test ICBMs, including missiles capable of reaching the U.S. mainland in the future. North Korea's recent SRBM tests clearly showed Kim's strong will to beef up his country's nuclear and missile capabilities. Compared with previous missile tests in the last weeks, however, today's missile test came unexpectedly, a day after North Korea resumed trade with China by cargo train in a bid to solve the country's devastating food shortages. According to media reports, the train crossed the border from Sinuiju to Dandong, a Chinese city near the border with North Korea, on Sunday and headed back to Sinuiju on Monday. Another cargo train crossed the border to head to Dandong on Monday, implying North Korea and China unofficially agreed to resume trading, even though North Korea has been reluctant to reopen the borders due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Reports indicated that the basic necessities of life such as flour, sugar, and cooking oil may have been the train's cargo, along with some chemical products and goods requested by the North's leadership. Cheong Seong-chang, the director of the Center for North Korean Studies at Sejong Institute in South Korea, told the diplomat that it would take about 10 days to disinfect the train to bring the goods inside the country. If no issues emerge from this trade, North Korea will likely open the new Yalu River Bridge in late February, a move that would allow more personal exchanges from April between Pyongyang and Beijing, Cheong said. North Korea closed its border and halted exchanges starting in late January 2020 when coronavirus cases surged in China. Pyongyang completely suspended all trade with China, worsening the food shortages and economic crisis from the UN-led economic sanctions. Last year, North Korea tried to reopen the border to get goods and supplies from China, but its disinfection system was not ready to cope with an unexpected emergency situation. Despite the resumption of trade with China on Sunday, it is still in doubt whether North Korea has a reliable disinfection system to prevent the spread of COVID-19 after reopening trade and exchanges with China. Restarting trade with China could be a signal that North Korea would consider re-engaging international diplomacy. However, Kim is unlikely to respond to any of the United States and South Korea's efforts to restore the stalled talks, considering the North Korean Foreign Ministry's recent remarks on the U.S. sanctions. If the U.S. adopts such a confrontational stance, the DPRK will be forced to take stronger and certain reaction to it. DPRK is an acronym of North Korea's official name, Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Given those comments, and Kim's promise to respond with goodwill to goodwill, strength to strength, in his approach to the nuclear talks in inter-Korean relations, today's missile launch signals that North Korea will not succumb to the U.S. sanctions and double standards on the military activities conducted by the two Koreas. It will likely keep testing SRBMs until the international community recognizes it as a nuclear power, even while focusing more on reviving the country's economy and developing rural areas for this year. With the Beijing Winter Games less than 3 weeks away, some expected North Korea to pause its missile tests until the end of the Olympics, especially given the overture to renew China-North Korea trade. However, Pyongyang tested SRBMs again on Monday, raising more tensions and concerns on the Korean peninsula that could affect China's plan to host a successful Olympics in a peaceful mood. Thank you.